Invisible Experts Podcast.
Well, hello everyone. For me, it's a pleasure having one of my best friends at the international level, Rashvin Pal Singh. No, it's Pal Singh or Pal? Sorry, man.
Pal Singh.
I don't
Yep,
know
yep.
how to Pal Singh. Yeah, man. How are you? How's it going?
Andreas, oh man, I'm good, brother. Good, good. Happy to be here. Good to be reconnected. When's the last time we met? It was Cape Town, no? Oh no, Addis.
Addis. Yeah, it was like maybe before COVID, so it
Yeah,
was kind
social
of a long time ago, huh? I mean,
forum.
we of course we keep in touch, talking
Yeah.
about stuff and projects and so on. So Raj, guys, is amazing. I mean, Raj, as a background, he's an accountant and he's an expert in finance. But since you finish, you started this fantastic project, Biji-Biji and Me.reka, right? I mean, you had like a previous experience as a consultant,
Yeah.
and then you have this kind of like managing in a performance improvement consulting company.
Yep.
But major experiences when you start to with your project, right?
So 4 years of management consultancy with Pricewaterhouse, PwC, and then decided that, you know what, let's no, that wasn't for me, and looking for how to make impact more meaningfully through the work that we do. So we left and we started Biji-Biji in 2013, and that time really it was all about looking at circular economy. That was the big thing that we started off doing. Ways to art projects, ways to products, different pathways from seat belts, banners, metal, and now plastics. And then Biji-Biji has grown into doing accelerators for environment and social organizations, and now Me.reka is our latest social enterprise.
Cool. We talking go about the both of them a little bit later, but I wanna ask you, what are you up to now, man? You told me about the Hub project. You went to the US with this program, and also you went to this program with Obama Foundation. So, dude, you are everywhere. So, what you up to?
I mean, I think since COVID, bro, like with things going digital, it was a really good experience for us to launch a lot of our content virtually. So that allowed us to spend the 2020, 2021 really working on our online content and growing that. And the big thing we've been doing now is looking at how to connect our online content to hubs across ASEAN. So we're connecting other creative spaces like us who will be implementing partners for the online learning. On my personal self, bro, yeah, the Obama leadership program was great. That actually was in Kuala Lumpur. That was in Kuala Lumpur. Amazing network of people, over 200 leaders from Asia Pacific. And I've been in touch with them. We are in different groups. We collaborate on either by sectors, by SE sectors, or environment or education sectors. I was in the US just last year in September for a mentorship program with the State Department. So that was just in the US, and yeah, amigo. Now it's looking good. Looking at how to create impact in the ASEAN region, but also working collaboratively with you and across.
Amazing, man. Look, I want to talk about your journey, right? Because you are such a young individual. And from my perspective, you have accomplished so much. And I'm going to quote you, okay? The only thing we were lacking was individual, organizational, and political will. It was then I decided to no longer be a part of the problem and to start being part of the solution. So, how's your story, man? How's the story of Rush? How you actually start to work in the sustainable sector? That was something that you perhaps pull over from your previous experience as a teenager, or that was something that you just come up with eventually. How's the story, man? How did you ended up creating this project?
So I guess for me personally, amigo, when I was growing up, I was always had a heart for looking at how to make things more fair, more equitable, right? That was just my natural instinct. But I also went to study finance, and I thought, hey, investment banking and the stock market was the exciting place, right? That's where the money is made. That's where the world, what keeps the world going around. So as any accounting and finance person, you look at either investment banking or Big Four professional firms. So I joined one of the Big Four, which was a great experience, really awesome learning. But that's when I got to do a project where we were one of the agents to do internal audit and external and to manage the funds for a network of NGOs who were getting money from a Geneva-based foundation. And I realized like that point how under-resourced these NGOs were, how they were struggling, and the funder really had very little empathy to support them. And then from there, I got exposed to other environmental issues that were happening in Malaysia at that point. And I was working also, so I was exposed to really amazing nonprofits on the ground and environmental issues in Malaysia. At the same time, working with some of the biggest corporates in the ASEAN region. And I was like, this is ridiculous because technically we have all this money, all this tech, everything that these impact partners need is available. It's just not being connected. We know the problems. There's just no political or human will to address them, right? Because it takes up my time or it's not my focus. And as you can see, the same with climate, right? With climate, we've got all the reports, all the science about how we've got 7 years to cap it below 1.5 degrees Celsius, but governments are still taking their time. So it was this calling, amigo, that I realized that if I don't quit my job and do something different, then there is no change.
Amazing, man. Listen, I have been always like fascinated with the Sikhs, right? I mean, in the north of India. Do you think, your like cultural background as a Sikh, right? Because you are, isn't it?
Yeah.
With this kind of vision of, collaborating to make society a better place? Do you think there is this kind of connection with this ancient culture and then you put in practice this and it reflects what are you doing right now?
Oh, amigo, like it's really nice that you like remember this and you connect this. So yes, like I'm born Sikh. My name is Rashvin Pal Singh. And in Sikhism, so growing up, we would go to our family Gurdwara. Gurdwara is a Sikh temple. There's a few in Malaysia, quite a few actually. And we have a concept in Sikhism called Seva, Seva. And Seva is really means service. And in terms of service, we also practice this specifically in a concept called Langar. And Langar is actually a free kitchen that we run within all Sikh temples. So in anybody from any walk of life can walk into a Sikh temple and get access to free food. Now, of course, the kitchens are not open every day. They're open probably 3 or 4 times a week whenever there's a program. But whenever there's a Sikh community program, the food is available for everybody to get access to, eating on the same plates, the same cutlery, the same food, sitting on the same tables. And if from growing up, you would help to serve, you would help to cut the vegetables, you'll help to wash the dishes, and you see everybody coming in and joining and being together. And I think this part definitely had a initial calling, right, or initial value built in me.
Wow, man, that's amazing because I really want to talk about collaboration, per se, at Biji-Biji America, but a little bit later. But I want to connect your cultural background with Malaysia, okay? And its society, because Malaysia is a multicultural society of which, the population is made up by different type of ethnic groups, includes Malays, Chinese, Indians, and the native. So I was wondering from your perspective how multiculturalism has impacted the society in Malaysia. What is the value in the way that you actually, run this day by day?
Yeah, and no, you're like right to point out. So Malaysia is super diverse. Malay, indigenous, native groups, right? In Sabah, Sarawak, which is the Borneo states of Malaysia, Chinese ethnicity, Indian, and even much more like some Portuguese, Malaysian descent. So a variety. There's a good many branches of ethnicity. And amigo, we've been living like not just harmoniously, but we all grew up as friends in school. So it's not like where you have 90% majority population, 10% diversity. Here it's a good 55, 20, 10, 10. So like really big chunks of different ethnicity. And just learning about each other's culture from young, growing up. So growing up, we would eat our own like Indian food back home that my parents would make, but also I would love eating like Malay food and Chinese food and trying different cuisines, going to different friends' house to celebrate. And just from day one, you understand that your culture and your ethnicity is one part of this big cog, this big world, right? And you understand that there is so much richness, there is so much to learn from each other, and you really learn that it's a beautiful place when we get to hang out and collaborate, but in a very friendly, natural setup, right? Not collaborate like we do for projects, but you really celebrate each other's like celebrations. You support each other. You're there for each other. So I think this part, whilst the world is now embracing diversity, inclusivity, and accessibility, right? Equitable. We've been doing this from way before, and I think this is a very beautiful part of our story. Like,
That's amazing, man, because I was thinking, what do you think is the formula to integrate different cultures and make this kind of intercultural connection in this kind of friendly way? Because, by checking the past history of Malaysia, I mean, of course, there was a moment of a civil war and so on, but it wasn't ethic at all, right?
no, it's very small. There was a few riots in '69, but that was way back, right? That's almost 50 years away ago. And I mean, to be very realistic, Andreas, like of course there is some political tension, right, between ethnicities, but this is really a design by politics because the people in Malaysia get along beautifully, right? And politicians who usually have very different agendas of winning votes use divisive rhetoric to split people, right? This divide and conquer style for a long time. And quite often they would use the word, oh, we need to tolerate each other, like understand tolerance. But I think that's a really bad concept because tolerance means you just choose to understand and accept that there is somebody different from you. But acceptance and embracing harmony is a whole deeper value, right? And this, amigo, comes it has to be something that happens first in a system or society that you trust each other. You have to
Yeah.
trust your neighbors because the minute you don't, so like to build social capital, right? It's about building social capital. And to build social capital, you want to embrace the value of diversity, the creativity that comes from it. But I think trust and a feeling of safety is so important. So once and because we celebrate with each other, we understand each other's religions, each other's races, each other's like practices, it's easy to trust and it's easy to feel safe. And then from there, yeah, you can go on to then really build harmony.
Dude, honestly, like that was for us fascinating because when we visited you, a few years back, we could see how diverse was the team, how friendly was. It was an excellent environment, but that was also that you can sense in the streets of Kuala Lumpur or other parts of the country. So that's why I wanted to ask you about this because this is
Yeah,
beautiful.
because it's
And
so
also,
beautiful.
yeah,
Because, for example, like, like quite often people don't like there's Islamophobia that happens globally quite a lot. And this is really from a lack of understanding. Me living in Malaysia, like we are a Muslim majority population, I have so many amazing Muslim friends, right? And in fact, when I was just telling this to one of the drivers at cars I was in, Uber car, right? And oh, how's it when you travel? And I was like, you know what? I'm so used to listening to the azan, the Muslim call for prayer. And when I was in the UK and when I walked past, and in Malaysia, we hear it every morning, right? And I didn't hear it for a long time. And when I heard it walking the UK, I felt so happy, you know? Although I'm not Muslim, but me hearing that call to prayer, which is something I'm so used to, gave me this sense of calmness and this sense of like familiarity, which comes from me understanding and me embracing my Muslim friends, brothers and sisters. So I think just really this part where, and our Muslim friends look forward to our like Indian friends celebrations, our Chinese friends celebrations, our friends in Sabah and Sarawak. So we look forward to each other's celebrations, right? Because we understand. And this is where like there's very little fear or mistrust because we get to hang out, we get to embrace each other's cultures. Yeah, it's not something that happens overnight, but it really takes a lot of effort at a national level, policy level, but normally politicians don't help.
Yeah. I know. But that happens everywhere, isn't it? That's why I don't
Yeah.
like politics and I don't talk politics, man. Because I don't know. Dude, you know, like I want to talk about Malaysia because Malaysia is known globally for the sustainable development initiatives at the local government level, right? For instance, with the fourth thrust of the 10th Malaysian plan,
Yep.
from the 2011 and 2015, or even, you know, at the national level with the Malaysian Greens Building Index, the GBI, right? So do you think this kind of um, government support enabled the development of sustainable initiatives in Malaysia like yours? Or that was just when you guys started your project, it was just maybe just out of the blue? How was it, man?
No, I think when we started 2013, there was very little awareness in this, right? And when we started this, it was a result of seeing a lot of deforestation issues happening in Malaysia. That was our own call to action. But you're right, since I would say the 11th and 12th Malaysia plan, which is until 2018, 2022, and beyond, now we've seen the SDG goals being implemented across different ministries, and then looking at how the targets are supported by implementing agencies to do it. So now the concept of SDGs, social entrepreneurship is, I would say, really quite widespread. There's good appreciation, good understanding. We still have a long way to go in terms of making the plans into action. But I think at the very top, the buy-in from political leaders, government leaders is there. The buy-in is there, the recognition is there. Now is really putting where the rubber hits the ground, they say, right?
Wow, man. Fantastic. But speaking of which, I want to talk about the SDGs, okay? So, what do you think about the SDGs and the Agenda 2030? Because, you know, nowadays there is a plethora of criticism in relation to it. You know, like people are not fully convinced. They think, you know, it wouldn't work. It kind of motivates more inequalities. You know, I mean, from my perspective, since we have been working in the system, is fantastic because back in the day, we didn't have such an umbrella, or
Correct.
if you wish, such a, you know, maybe policies that be pushed towards the government in any context. So what do you reckon about it? What's your take on it?
I mean, I'm with you on this, right, Andreas, where it's great that we have a common agenda, and that's what we really need, right? So we all sing the same song. But what is the criticism is correct. You see every corporate or project just slapping on the goals, right? Just like we support the 17 goals or we support these 3 goals, and no one even looks at the targets and the indicators below that. And also, what's quite often misunderstood is that SDGs are actually national agendas, right? So SDG is your national agenda, outward, what you need to achieve. ESG is internally how you operate your own organization. So you want to have good ESG practices internally, but then your product or service should be helping to tackle an SDG goal. And at a national level, you want the country to be looking at how to achieve its own targets. But I think what has happened is that it's become such a buzzword for everybody to use. And honestly, the buck stops at governments, right? Because you have a mandate to look after people's well-being, you have access to policy, to funding, to, yeah, all the resources you need. And governments just don't have the will. I mean, we're looking at COP28. That's, we go to these meetings and it's even so hard to agree on a common statement, right? But also here, Andreas, like I do
Yeah.
think developed countries have a big role to play, right? Because if you look at historical carbon emissions, de- developed countries have had a really good start in accumulating wealth through also colonization, through imperial policies, as well as initial industrialization. Now, you cannot reverse colonization, but I think developed countries have a huge mandate to fund climate finance so that developing countries don't take the same path. And of course, I understand you need India and China to play a very important role, because these two countries, if they don't come on board, then everybody else's effort doesn't make sense. But developed countries have a big role to fund, especially for the smallest, countries in the Pacific Islands, small individual countries struggling with economic issues, right? There's no way they're going to think of climate or environment issues like.
Yeah, I agree, man. Actually, and you're gonna see in 10 years time, one of the most important, countries in terms of policies and projects and different proposals are gonna be the BRICS. I'm
Yeah.
ensure you that.
Yeah.
Because now they are starting to develop programs, they are working along together. So it's gonna be very interesting. I think it's gonna be a change of, global politics overall. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen, man. Listen, how bad is the situation in terms of sustainability in Malaysia? Because you guys are really wealthy in terms of natural resources, biodiversity, but also you have a pretty big population, right?
Yeah, we got about a 30 million, no, 33 million population. And so there have been some good, like, fixed rules on at least 50% forest cover. That's something they're really fighting for. Plastic is still a huge issue in the region, but our biggest issue really is that we're still, in terms of big issues, like we're still a fossil fuel driven economy, right? Oil and gas is a big industry in Malaysia, and a lot of power comes from coal. Renewable sources, including hydro, is only about 15%, 18%. So we're still majority a coal-powered energy industry, and I think changing that will be the biggest. And because we got so much solar potential, right? So we need to tap into that, which is happening. So I guess it's happening, amigo. It's just not fast enough. That's the problem, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's always a matter of time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look, dude, I want to talk about Biji-Biji America, okay? And I quote you again, man. You said, we live in a world that is much more connected than we realize. A piece of plastic thrown off the waters in Malaysia might end up in the shores of Australia or Africa or vice versa, right? So based upon this kind of like quotation, right? I want to talk about Biji-Biji and Me.reka. So if you can tell our, audience, what is Biji-Biji and what is Me.reka?
So Biji-Biji means seeds in Malay, and it's about us sowing seeds of sustainable and impactful projects. So we focus on two big things. One is circular economy, and now we focus on plastics type 2, type 5. We work with 3 local communities to implement small-scale recycling with them. So they're recycling their own plastic waste, and we're helping them to convert that plastic into products back into the market. And we realize, Andreas, that we have a huge role to play to support new NGOs and SEs so that they can grow, because not one organization can really, like, no one can do this alone. So we run our accelerator programs with the US Embassy, with Yayasan Hasana, a partner in Malaysia, CIMB, this bank, right? So we work with different partners to run accelerator programs for new youth projects, SEs, and NGOs. So that's Biji-Biji side. And Me.reka, which means they or them, like people, and also the act of creating. So it's a verb, like to create or to make. So Me.reka is our edtech social enterprise. We work in the creative economy to provide entrepreneurs, creatives, and professionals skills for employment or increasing their income.
Fantastic, man. But you guys still working in upcycling or not really?
Yeah, so circular economy. So Biji-Biji is but only plastic. So we stopped the bags during COVID because it was supply chain difficulty, and also our workforce, which was, we had 2 tailors from Pakistan, and we worked with the refugee community as well. So that whole thing was broken at that point. And also, Andreas, we just felt really awkward to also be pushing the bag sales during that time where in Malaysia we had people couldn't get access to food, people couldn't get access to supplies, and here we were like, "Yo, go buy a bag." So that didn't work. So we stopped it, and now we're focusing really on just plastics and our accelerators. Maybe one day we'll start the bags again. I'm sure you have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. Dude, can you explain like really quickly what upcycling is?
So upcycling is essentially taking a material or a product, right, and now looking at the value of that. So, for example, if you were to get a piece of cloth or a fabric or a car seat belt that you get, now instead of breaking it up to recycle, where you would shred it and make it into new material, you want to capture the value of that material in itself and see how you could plug that into another product or service. So it's really capturing the value of a material and putting it back into the economy, as compared to recycling is also really good, but recycling takes another round of energy and effort. So upcycling is reduce the first choice, reuse, upcycle second choice, recycle is the third choice.
Yeah, amazing, man. Thank you. Listen, one of the key questions is, of course, you guys run two companies. So how do you guys sustain your companies financially? Because you are generating social and environmental value. You have this amazing capacity in terms of education, creativity, and so on. So how do you make the money to run and sustain your projects?
So it comes from a combination of working with businesses who engage us for either training, capacity building, and design thinking bootcamps where we can work with them. So that forms about 40% of the funding. We do work with foundations for specific impact projects, programmatic funding from them. That's another 40%. And then the balance is with customers, individuals, right? And sometimes it's corporates paying for individuals or foundations paying for individuals or just direct to individuals.
Fantastic, fantastic. Dude, I'm gonna go back to the collaboration or the collaborative part. So what's the importance of the collaborative community work in both Biji-Biji and Me.reka, especially within a multicultural background? Because as I said before, that was amazing. So how important is, collaborate naturally, in your words, to develop and to take your company to another level?
So I guess let's look at us, right? When we collaborated to make the MOOC, right, on sustainable development and the one on upcycling. First, there was trust between the two of us, two organizations. So we trusted each other. We believe in each other's work. Mutual interests, right, something we both care about. But then the third thing is always a commitment and effort, right? Because it's always easy to envision these things, but if you don't, so collaboration normally everyone says it's important, but people undervalue the effort it takes to also make it. Because you need to have meetings, you need to share documents, you need to work on it, we need to respect each other's time. So trust, common interests, and then actual work and effort. And I guess for us, it was always also transparency, right? Where we knew exactly if there was any cost being involved, how were we splitting it? If there was any revenue involved, how were we doing, how were we treating that? So this part is the thing that really is needed to make it work. And we can go to as many events and say, let's collaborate. But if we don't recognize that you need these few things to work,
Yeah, of course. That's amazing, man. Actually, dude, one of the most interesting things that I learned from you guys was the transparency part in terms of finance in your company. In terms of the payment scheme,
Yep.
investments, etc., and etc. Would you mind to elaborate a little bit about it? Because that's fascinating. And it's very, from, my experience doing research with different companies, running my own company, this is amazing. It's a game changer. So how does it work? So you guys, illustrate all the numbers in a platform that all the team
Yeah.
is available to see.
We share all the project costs, expenses, revenue of all the projects and the whole organization's direction to the team. So project managers get full access to their projects and about their spending and how that's going, what money goes back to the organization at the central level, because there's also group costs. How does that get treated? So we practice like full transparency on that part of it. On everybody in a project or in a team needs to know where is the money coming from, how much is this effort worth, and where is it going. So this helps a lot. And we used to also do full transparency. So we also announced the salary scales within the organization. And now we're going to also announce back the brackets that we have so people know. The main thing for me, Andreas, is about knowing what the bottom earner and the top earner is having, right? So knowing the gap between this and having that ratio. So we've set it to be between now up to 9 times. And we want to, it's not about not paying yourself well, it's about raising everybody's salaries as well. So transparency is really recognizing that this is what we do. And yes, if there's things to be improved, we will work on it. If there's things that we're already doing good, let's keep doing it better.
Wow, that's amazing. That's why I wanted to point this out because I never seen this, you know, and also like people exactly knows how they doing and how they can be better, right? Better off in terms of, I don't know, opportunities within the company. In terms of the, what's the impact, man? And how do you guys measure it? Because you guys have been there for a long time. So do you guys have like a report? Okay, this is the number of organizations that we helped, and this is how we measure it.
Guess what? Next Monday is our 10th year anniversary for Biji-Biji.
Wow, 20.
On the 19th of June is our 10th year anniversary. And so we look at impact internally, like the amount of, so we have an internal program called Changemaker Talent Development. So we bring interns in, we put them through a 3-month development program in the organization. They learn about social entrepreneurship and the departments they attach to. So we've got our Changemakers, who's now coming, the number coming close to 450 Changemakers we've created. And they've gone on to different like universities, corporates, SEs to continue their work. We look at the number of plastic we reduce, but income that we give communities as well. That's a big one. Now, again, then when it comes to the organizations, it's really how they have grown. So post-program, how much have they grown in terms of their impact, their followers from their comms, and also their revenue. And on the Me.reka side, it's really, Amigo, how many people we put into jobs and how many people increase their income again. So we've tried to simplify, there's a lot of outcome measures with mindsets and capacity building, but we also try to report the simple, meaningful ones, which is jobs, income, growth, as well as plastics and talent development.
Amazing, man. Good job, though. Well done.
It's a lot of work, though. I was
Look,
talking about it like earlier.
Yeah, look, I always like when I talk to you guys, the actors in our sector, to talk about the drivers, right? You know, like I was reading something about you. Somebody wrote something about you guys and you especially, and you were saying this: the most memorable moment was when I met this young student, whom I had met briefly after giving a talk in Penang. He told me a year later that after that talk, he decided to leave his office job to start his own impact enterprise. I was completely humbled and impressed by the willpower of this student. So that's amazing, man, because I was about to ask you why you are so committed in this cause. Because when I reflect on the sustainable ecosystem, I always think, what are the drivers of people like you, and why do you start with these, and whether or not is it worthy at the end? Because you can take this talent somewhere else and profit yourself instead of profiting society. So, what is your driver, man?
Oh man. So that case is like I'm still in touch with this guy called Chong Wei, and amigo, guess what? So this guy has gone on to set up an amazing social enterprise out of Penang. Penang is a 4-hour drive from Kuala Lumpur, and he works with providing coding and programming lessons for young adults, kids between 9 to 15, and he has a cross subsidy model, so he charges those who can afford, and he makes it subsidize for those who can't, right? Amazing. And this is kind of the things that, you don't report it in the reports, but when you know this and you just hear this, it makes you, it makes your hair stand, right? But for me, amigo, Andreas, like, it's also, there's many ways to spend your time, right? And yes, me and Gurpreet, my other co-founder, talk about this quite a lot. And people always look at money as the single biggest definition of value. But if we all know that making money is what we're going to do because you need to pay for your livelihood, family, healthcare, education, all these things. So if making money is something you're going to have to do because we also live in a capitalistic world, then making money is a given. Then the question is, what do you do to make money, right? And how do you do it? So we knew that we were going to work to earn income one way or the other, whether it's through a corporate, through government, through a business, one way or the other. But now if that's a given, then what you do is the part that you have a say. So choosing to do something that inspires us, motivates us. Yes, it's hard, like work is demanding, but I've never worked with a more inspiring group and feel joy to go to work, right? And yes, some days are tough, some days you struggle, some days you wish it was another holiday, right? A longer weekend, of course. But still, for the 80% of it, you are happy, you feel energized and content with what you're doing.
That's amazing. And actually, I want to talk about the challenges, right? So based on your experience, what are the challenges that sustainable entrepreneurs or companies face the most?
From what I've been seeing, Andreas, I think the biggest challenge is that, and I'll go into social entrepreneurship, right, SE specifically, is quite often it's really the balance between impact and income and revenue, right? And most of the time, we actually focus a lot more on the impact, and we forget that actually having a sustainable business with a marketable
Amigo,
service.
the connection.
Oh man, yeah. Okay, can
Sorry,
you hear me?
yeah, again, can you start again? Yeah.
Okay, so the biggest challenge I see for social enterprises is really the balance between impact and revenue, right? And this part is, no, is the internet good or?
Not really. Wait, I think it was just gone for a minute.
Yeah. Let's just wait for a while.
Yeah. Let's try it again because this is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, go.
Okay, let's just see. Yeah, the rest of the pages were fine. Okay, so where is this? So one of the biggest challenges I see for a social enterprise really is the balance between impact and business sustainability or business revenue, right? And amigo, quite often we really look at the impact side, which is so important, but we forget that having a sustainable source of income through our product or service is so important. Because if you don't have that income coming in, you are struggling and stressing yourself out to make impact. So this balance is the one that is so important all the time.
So listen, amigo, let's wrap up. Look, in terms of recommendations, okay?
Yep.
What tips for people who want to start to work or create new initiatives for social or environmental impact? What would you say? Tips, like 3 tips or something.
I mean, first start by looking what you have around you, the networks and the knowledge that you have. Second is really go talk to existing practitioners because there are solutions being done. You want to go and understand that. And the third thing is knowing that it will be tough. So get into it knowing that it's going to be demanding, but it will be the most joyful experience for you.
Amazing, man. And the last Q, man, what book or movie that inspired you that you would like to share with us? What do you recommend to read, or maybe watch a documentary or a movie that you think it would be interesting to watch or to read?
I mean, the one that we watched many years ago was called Garbage Warrior. It was about this guy who was building homes entirely from waste materials. Plant earth shapes.
Wow.
It was called earth
The
shapes.
Cabbage Warriors.
Garbage Warrior. Yeah, check that out.
Amazing, man. Okay, buddy. I really appreciate giving up your time.
No
It's
worries.
amazing, man. And I hope to see you soon then.
Let's catch up soon. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, cool. Let me just stop this.